What do you know about Dr. Dunch?
Based on the unbelievable true story.
I can't make sense of this.
Dr. Death.
Dunch has 2 deaths that we know of.
Starring Joshua Jackson with Christian Slater and Alec Baldwin.
I am going to fix you.
All episodes streaming now, only on Peacock. Streaming only on Peacock.
What do you know about Dr. Dunch?
He was charming, intelligent.
My patients mean everything to me.
Based on the unbelievable true story.
I can't make sense of it.
Dunch has 2 deaths that we know of. The state of Texas has executed people for less.
It's like he knew what he was supposed to do.
And he did the exact opposite.
Dr. Death. Starring Joshua Jackson with Christian Slater and Alec Baldwin.
I am going to fix you.
All episodes streaming now, only on Peacock.
You and I were living in the strangest of times on my hill, watching while the cities rise from the collapse that we left when the sun beat it down to the valley. Living in the strangest of times, you and me, watching while the cities rise and fall like rain. Seems like I knew you before, but when did I knew you? Funny how the colors bend when lifetimes start to blend, and we've been spinning mysteries banana. Oh, living in the strangest of times, you and me, watching while the cities rise and fall like rain, fall like rain, fall like rain, fall like rain. Into the darkness we fly, kings of our beasts of bay. Who am I? Wearer of my armies of destiny. I guess I can capture every butterfly I see, for I see past my crown how my battlements are coming down. We're living in the strangest of times, you and me, watching while the cities rise and fall like rain. Living in the strangest of times, you and me, watching while the cities rise and fall like rain, 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 they fall like rain, they fall like rain.
You can advertise your business on Night Dreams Talk Radio, and you will be heard worldwide. Why not contact us at nightdreamstalkradio@gmail.com. The views, opinions, and representations expressed on the Night Dreams Talk Radio Network and its website are those of the hosts, guests, and participants, and are not necessarily those of or endorsed by the network, its affiliated stations and broadcasts, the management, other hosts, or advertisers of the network. The shows found on the Night Dreams Talk Radio Network can, but do not necessarily, promote any particular lifestyle, belief, religion, political affiliation, or other personal practice. These shows are for entertainment purposes only and are not intended to treat, diagnose, and or claim any cure of disease or condition or give any medical or legal advice. coming to you from some far point station, like a cosmic tumbleweed, both north and south of the Pleiades. Here's your host, Gary Anderson.
And here I am, and boy, the thunder is moving off. Well, good evening, morning, or whatever, depending on your time zone. This is Gary. You're listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio on Night Dreams Talk Radio Network. Well, astronaut, what's that? The astronaut. I can't even say it right now. Being up in the space station for 1 year, his heart shrunk about 20%. James, can you believe that? Being in the space station for 1 year, coming back down, having his heart shrunk 20%.
Yeah, you know what? We are not made to live in space. Could you imagine going to Mars? You would come back a little person.
Well, just getting to Mars? I mean, what all would shrink on a human body? I don't know. That's really, really scary if you really think about it. And again, you know, in the news, it's always speculation. But now they're saying the first city on Mars could house over 1 million humans.
That's a lot of humans. Could you imagine the traffic going back and forth? I think we should, maybe go to the moon first before we jump into 1 million on Mars. That's a lot of people.
Oh, look at this. They don't have very much oxygen. You can't survive without making oxygen. Okay, the water is going to be another thing, and food. And how are they going to get enough food to support human life of 1 million? But don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, because NASA came out yesterday and said the doomsday asteroid is not going to hit the Earth for 100 years. So maybe that's why everybody's talking about going to Mars, and China and Russia sign agreement to, make a moon base to get the heck off of this planet before it's no longer here.
Yeah, and it's every week there's a asteroid or comet or big meteor or something that's coming in that we don't see it till the last minute, and I don't think we have any defense against it anyway.
Well, I don't know. I think closing your eyes and going in the closet would be a good defense.
Yeah, I still think of that movie, Armageddon, or one of them, where the ocean disappears as the guy's on the beach, and then it's like, oh boy, what's coming next?
Yeah, and a life jacket isn't going to do you any good, is it?
No, not when you got a zillion pounds of water burying you. No.
Yeah, I was working in the studio all day, Saturday and Sunday. I did a radio gig on another radio station last night. And what I did is, in the middle of the night, I got kind of frustrated. So I took a couple-hour break out of the studio of rewiring some stuff. And I went out and watched the old Volcano movie. The one in Los Angeles, which grew out of the tar pits, and it was huge, and a lot of people ended up dying and stuff like that. And it happened just in a matter of 24 hours. And you look at, the Yellowstone, for example. They say, well, it has signs when it is going to blow. But again, they really don't have that technology down pat. I mean, they could sit and say, hey, Yellowstone won't go for another 40,000 years, and you wake up tomorrow and there's ash and half the country's gone.
That's true, and let me tell you something else. That ash, it could shut down flights. It could create pretty much a nuclear winter. I mean, it's all downhill. That's bad news stuff.
When Mount St. Helens went, they had to shut down all aircraft worldwide because, that ash, what would it do to a jet engine or any type of engine? You won't be up flying very long. So, I mean, if Yellowstone goes, by the way, you're going to be gone because you got magma probably underneath your house in Ohio. I mean, I'm going to be gone. A lot of states are going to be gone, but then we're going to have the nuclear, the nuclear winter, minus the nuclear effect, because of all the ash that's going to be dumped. Very scary. So where do you go? Well, that's why I decided to bring Dr. Richard Allen Miller back on the show here tonight. People need to take things serious, and people aren't. We got a lot of things going on. We got the North Pole, South Pole, Antarctica, all melting. You know, ships now are going from, well, through Antarctica, which used to be ice there, and they had to go around the Cape and go the other way to go where they were going. Now they just can go right through it. I mean, it's scary. A lot of things are going on. Our magnetic field is moving, and that could flip at any moment. But don't worry about that, people. Worry more about a solar flare. We're not prepared for it. So if we get hit with a major solar flare, and we have lucked out because there's been some major flares that have missed the Earth, and it would have taken out our whole grid system. How about the people in nursing homes? How about the people on life support in hospitals? How about elderly people? How about what are you going to do in wintertime when it's cold? How are you going to get food into the stores and feed the people? How are you going to even do anything? And people need to start thinking now. You got to be prepared. You got to figure a bug out route. Find a place that you think you could maybe you and your loved ones can survive. You got to figure out what type of medical supplies. You need to know what type of things it grows out in the woods, that you can make drugs, like antibiotics and stuff like that. What can keep you going in an event that all that stuff is not available anymore? Most of our medical stuff comes from China, our pills, India, and everywhere else. I mean, we don't make very much in our country anymore. It is scary. And people need to have enough food, enough water, and, be prepared. And frankly, maybe know somebody that has an old car that doesn't have electronics in it, so they can release bug out and get out of the area. What do you think about that one?
Absolutely. And you know what? Hopefully, and I know that we can learn some of the essentials that we probably need to have on hand when all this hits the what, so we can have it. Water, food, certain things we need, supplies. Because it's going to happen. It's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when.
That's the scary
what scenario, part. Right.
That's the scary part. How many people are prepared? I have 2 100-gallon drums of water behind my house. Because no matter what, even if something happened for a week or 2 or 3, like I'm on a shared well, I mean, I would have no water. How are you going to flush for sanitation? How are you going to wash your dishes? How are you going to have water to drink? I mean, most people, if they don't even have that, they don't even know how to get water if they're not in an area that has water available. They don't know how to even start a fire without a lighter and matches, a majority of people. That's the scary thing. People aren't prepared for any disaster. They are prepared to go to their local grocery store or Walmart store and go buy their food and medical supplies there. If all that's gone, what are you going to do?
Yeah, a lot of people's going to be in trouble. Let me tell you something. I grew up learning all that stuff, and unless you learned that or you're an Amishman, you're in for a rude awakening.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's what it's going to be good tonight with Dr. Richard Allen Miller. He served on the advisory board at the White House under Richard Nixon. He trained Navy SEALs. He's been in, situations where even, I hate to use the word, he had, I think, drink his own urine at one point. I know I had to when I went through survival in the military. And I'll tell you what, you can get by if you have no water. You can drink your urine if it's fresh. If you wait a little bit, it'll kill you. But I guarantee you, if you have to end up drinking your urine, nobody's going to talk to you because they're going to be at least 20 feet away from you.
I think you raised some good points there, but boy, I hope it doesn't come to that.
I don't know. Well, hey, Dr. Richard Allen Miller, how are you doing? And I want to thank you for coming back on the show.
I was just listening to all of this, and you're right. Nobody actually has a clue. And, of course, the media, good luck with all of that. I always like to open it by saying things always work out in the end. if things are not working out, it's not yet the end.
Well, it can work out two ways. One, you survive. The other, you die.
What's the, I've actually written about what happens at the moment of death and what happens right after the moment of death. And death, at least from a physics point of view, is not exactly what your religious point of view might suggest. It's not the end of life. It's the opposite. And some people would say that you're asleep right now because, in fact, there are dream states like lucid dreaming that have more content to reality than consciousness. And one of the studies I'm doing right now for the military, at 77, I'm still deployed as a GS-18, is that altered states of consciousness are places like tools in a toolbox where you can do things in those states that you're unable to do.
I'm Robert Conti, Chief of the Metropolitan Police Department, and I need your help. Dangerous driving on DC streets has risen dramatically, resulting in tragic fatalities. Together, we can reverse this trend. So join me in our commitment to adopt safe driving behaviors in the district. Never speed, drive impaired, or drive distracted. Too much is at stake to be careless behind the wheel, and our officers are committed to a safer community. And you should too. Please help us by ending all dangerous driving behaviors. I'm Robert Conti, Chief of the Metropolitan Police Department, and I need your help. Dangerous driving on DC streets has risen dramatically, resulting in tragic fatalities. Together, we can reverse this trend. So join me in our commitment to adopt safe driving behaviors in the district. Never speed, drive impaired, or drive distracted. Too much is at stake to be careless behind the wheel, and our officers are committed to a safer community. And you should too. Please help us by ending all dangerous driving behaviors.
In a conscious waking state. And while our society is afraid, as a general rule, of altered states and so on, I've watched a woman rip a car door off in a moment of need when the car was on fire to save her daughter. Now, that's physically impossible because her bone and her, muscle is not as strong as steel. How could she do that? And that's what I'm doing now. I had one of the ships that came into my harbor this last year was not about money. It was a second-generation Russian that is quoting from some work I wrote back in 1974. Second generation means he studied under Geryaev and Popov, who got nominated for a Nobel Prize, quoting from my work in 1992. They didn't get the nod, so none of us got to go to Stockholm. But this Russian last year made a breakthrough on what is called the proton cloud. And that's the space between when a proton is a particle and becomes a wave. And what he proved is that neurotransmitters in the brain are resonant cavity oscillators that are dialoguing with subtle bodies outside the physical body, where you have access to tools that consciousness does not provide. And one of the things, this new field theory we're writing right now, we just finished a chapter in a book on resonant cavity oscillators, science book, laying a foundation for this new paper, will supersede my holographic concept by 47 years and will answer such questions as, if time is not real, what does that make your son?
What would it make my son?
A younger, brighter version of you. And then the big question comes in, why would you want to send him to educational processes that we currently enjoy to dumb him down to become you?
That's a good one.
Well, then there it is. Social distancing should have happened 10 years ago. So there are good things that could have come out or could be seen as a result of this COVID virus nonsense. And the Suez Canal and that ship that got stuck is going to have more impact on your life shortly than this COVID virus did this last year and a half.
You mean...
Watch and see.
You mean because goods are going to be delayed getting to where they need to be?
Well, they already are. Stay tuned. Film at 11. Same bad channel. Same bad time. You watch and say.
Well, you know what also, Dr. Richard, what really...
call me Rick, please.
Okay,
I mean,
Rick. Okay.
Engineers go by Dick, and physicists go by Rick.
Okay, Rick. Well, here's what really got me nervous the other night. I was reading the science report. They said when a person dies, their brain actually tries for 24 hours to heal itself. And it's
zombie neurotransmitter. There's all kinds of metaphor going on, but at the moment of death, there's a 5-gram weight loss in everybody. What is that? It's not urine, so what is it? Well, I am proposing that it's microtubules outside the body with structured water in it. And 5 grams of structured water is enough memory, metaphorically, for 100,000 lifetimes.
Oh, wow.
And at the moment of death, if you go into the Bordeaux Thidal, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, by the way, all of this content is in Chapter 7 of my new book coming out, The Non-Local Mind in a Holographic Universe. And that chapter is called Time Travel and the True Nature of Cavitation. That's why you have 2 brains, physics and religion. And neither will get you there. It'll be, like Simon says, you can go halfway to the door. Physics doesn't have the answer because it starts with assumed truths and definitions. And literally, man hasn't got a clue what space or time is. If the assumption is if the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line, the Earth's round. But if space is curved, I can prove it's flat. Which one is it? And the correct answer is yes, because our concept of space is that limited as human beings and a subset of other life forms that we're in the middle of. Just to give you a metaphor on that one, how many ants are on your property? And who's terraforming it more?
Very interesting. But here's the thing, Richard. It really gets me nervous. Okay, when you're dead, a lot of people, have come back from being dead and they have claimed out-of-body experience, or they've seen loved ones, or they've gone through the tunnel, or they were in the operating room and they look down and they see their body. They hear the music that the doctors are playing on their, radio or recorder.
Oh, yeah. There's a movie that you want to watch. It's in Portuguese with English subtitles called Astral City. And it shows this doctor watching himself die on the operating table, and boom, it jumps to what happens next. And that's interesting. Astral City. If you can find it on Vimeo or one of the other channels on the internet for free. It's Portuguese, and it's English subtitle. Now, the Bordeaux Thidal, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, says that man is offered one last choice at the moment of death. And he can either go into the blue light, which you would call getting off the wheel, going back to the Lord, or becoming part of the Lord, or you can go in through the tunnel of light that Kubler-Ross and James Hillman and others have written about, where all your friends are waving your dog that died earlier and waiting for you in heaven. Come on back, the water's fine. You have that choice. And really, that's one of the reasons why many people are now suggesting that we're in a matrix in the future. And the joke I gave to you is, oh, yeah, they stuck us in this little dream state while they're terraforming Earth right in front of your eyes, black goo. Loves radiation. I was listening to you talk about Yellowstone and Ohio. Isn't it interesting? My buddy down the street has tomography in his bunker, is able to see what's underground, and guess what? Yellowstone is seen as far as Ohio underground right now. You can count on that one. And the bad news on that one is not about your nuclear winter and ash. I've got that easily solved. That would be an Arapaho Arizona, not Colorado. They're up there's Oppenheimer Ranch Project. We've got sustainable lifeboats everywhere. When I started the first radio with John B. Wells on Coast to Coast before he got fired, I remember saying that USS America is taking on water. And I don't know whether or not it's going to sink or swim, but I think it's time to think about lifeboats. And a sustainable lifeboat is one with oars. And so there's possibilities, and that's what I do now for the government. I manage bunkers throughout North America. And I have no idea what's going to happen. You know, you were talking about NASA and this killer asteroid. I'm looking at a book I wrote back to add fuel. Let's see, I'm going to read from the introduction. To add fuel to the 2012 stigma. The official NASA website is now stating a new pending potential for disaster. They report a new set of solar flares within the next 2 years, while the normal solar flare cycle. This is from Matt Stein and I. Matt was my partner until his untimely death. And I can tell you, it was Joseph Campbell that said, quote, "When you see the kingdom of the Father on earth, the apocalypse has already occurred. It is perpetual in its potential. What you're doing is now realizing your vulnerability and that you're along for the ride. Control is a fantasy. What you can do is try to prep yourself like a Boy Scout, try to make eagle. You know, learn how to start a fire in the campfire, learn how to eat off of nature, how to find your medicine in the woods. I can tell you the American Indian, I've got a lot of experience because I was a roadman with the Northern Cheyenne, and I belong to the Medicine Lodge on the Hoh. I represent the Sitka tribe with all their songs and dances. That's called medicine, their history. That's what a whale does when it sings its song. It's teaching, it's young, it's history. And each whale is different. And that's a cetacean. And when you realize that orca has a cerebral cortex that's literally twice the size of man, that mammal is firing 60% of it. And oh, guess what? It has access to 9/10 of the biosphere, where man is limited to 1/10. Who's superior?
Well,
you know, we're losing perspective on what is and is not real, and we need to think about things. I wrote Workbook 2, which was a follow-on the protocols I wrote with Power Tools dealing with Navy SEAL, and the 8 protocols I trained them to be different than normal military, and one of which is redundancy, like physics is a jack of all trades, just like a farmer. Farmer has to know a whole bunch of different skills, not just, you know, animal husbandry, has to know carpentry, has to know how to weld during the winter to fix his farm machinery, and maybe put in crops. There's all kinds of possibilities here. And what I did was I broke down this system into 7 chapters. Chapter 1 is living off the grid, and isn't that interesting? This has, I'm going to have to open something up that just, I am being attacked right now. Can you imagine that on my computer?
Well, you know, you want to hear something interesting? And James, I was telling James, 4 hours before going on the air tonight, somebody hacked into, right now I got 9 computers to do the show. I got 2 servers and actually 7 computers. And I tell you what, it started out one computer right after the other.
It exactly happened to me 2 weeks ago. And is it personal or is something else going on? And the correct answer is yes.
It's scary because I was sweating. What?
Yeah, I know. I got it. I found what I needed. I'm good to go again. Chapter 1, water. Chapter 2, food. Chapter 3, medicine. Chapter 4, sanitation. Chapter 5, heat and fuel. Chapter 6, entertainment. And Chapter 7, the go bag. You have those in line, your chances of survival have moved to 90%. Man is a very tenacious individual and has the possibility of surviving almost anything. In fact, we have a history of it. Even the Clovis that had spaceflight down in Mexico, while they crawled out of the cave, they became the Hopi. Water is probably the single most, the way Matt put it, and this is to Matt Stein, you have 3 minutes for air, 3 days for water, and 3 weeks for food. What's important?
Well, I think oxygen and water is going to be the most
There you
important.
go. Yeah,
Now,
if you can't breathe, you're done. Once you've got that going, you know, with these face masks and all this nonsense that they're doing now, if the masks were real, where's the hazmat disposal unit for the dirty mess?
you're right. Now, hey,
Well,
Richard.
I'm just asking questions because something doesn't pencil right here. Now,
it
water.
doesn't. Now, listen.
Let's talk about water,
Richard.
because water is the most important thing there is. And when I say that, most of our water is contaminated. And even up in Washington State, where I grew up in the Okanagans, you know, the water up there is clean, but some animal commits suicide above you, and you got coliform and all kinds of creepy in the water that could kill you in an instant.
Okay, now,
Even
Richard,
with purified water.
Richard, we need to take a break for the radio stations. And what I want to do, before we talk about water and survival stuff, why don't we talk about the doomsday stuff? All things first.
Of course. Sure.
And let's get the
Scare
people.
everybody first.
Yeah, scare everybody first. And then let's give them ideas how maybe they can save themselves, their loved ones, where to go, where not to go. Okay? Like, you don't want to go to my ex-mother.
Streaming only on Peacock.
What do you know about Dr. Dunch?
He was charming, intelligent.
My patients mean everything to me.
Based on the unbelievable true story.
I can't make sense of it.
Dunch has 2 deaths that we know of. The state of Texas has executed people for less.
It's like he knew what he was supposed to do.
And he did the exact opposite.
Dr. Death. Starring Joshua Jackson with Christian Slater and Alec Baldwin.
I am going to fix you.
All episodes streaming now, only on Peacock. Streaming only on Peacock.
What do you know about Dr. Dunch?
He was charming, intelligent.
My patients mean everything to me.
Based on the unbelievable true story.
I can't make sense of it.
Dunch has 2 deaths that we know of. The state of Texas has executed people for less.
It's like he knew what he was supposed to do.
And he did the exact opposite.
Dr. Death. Starring Joshua Jackson with Christian Slater and Alec Baldwin.
I am going to fix you.
All episodes streaming now, only on Peacock.
Law's house for certainly, but you got to have all this stuff planned out. So when we come back from the break in about 2 minutes, Richard, let's talk about that, and then we'll go into all the other stuff. How's that?
Works for me. You're in charge.
Okay. Well, I wish my wife would know that once in a while. We'll be right back with Dr. Richard Allen Miller right after this break. So stay tuned.
We're here to make you feel.
Hi, Tom Davis here with Metatron Power and Light. We'd like to thank everyone for all the positive emails and responses to our music. Our music can be found on Amazon, Spotify, YouTube, and all digital outlets, and is featured on Night Dreams Talk Radio with Gary Anderson.
Metatron Power and Light is a band that deals with esoteric subjects, the paranormal, and other topics that engage the spirit and mind. Visit MetatronPowerandLight.com to learn more.
We are facing a time of great change, and the future is unwritten. But when we come together and seek answers, we expand our awareness until we begin to see the unseen. Uncovering secrets allows us to develop the knowledge we will need to shape our future and control our destiny.
tacos with cheese and a large soda. That's $10,012. Please drive around.
Wait, 10,000 what?
It's obvious you're buzzed and driving.
I've only had a few. I'm fine.
Yeah, the food's $12, but getting pulled over for buzz driving could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. Please drive around. Actually, just park and come in.
Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Night Dreams Talk Radio, After Dark, wants to give a big shout out to all the truckers that listen to our show.
From the compound in beautiful Gig Harbor, Washington, Night Dreams Talk Radio presents your host, Gary Anderson.
And we are back with Dr. Richard Allen Miller. Here's my concern, okay? Let's go to all these doomsday scenarios it's out there. What down the future do we have if we live in Los Angeles, San Francisco, Seattle, British Columbia? What is going to happen eventually?
Wow. Well, Edgar Cayce started that mythology, and the one that the Navy uses there's future map of America, Chet Snow. Chet Snow is the one that the military uses. There's one by Scallion, of course, Edgar Cayce. Others have different doomsday on what the future of America, what the future of the world is going to look like because of fault lines, pole shifts, invasion by spiders. Who knows? Okay. The West Coast has a fault line that runs right on down I-5, all the way down probably as far as Peru.
Wow.
So there's a volcano off of Crescent City, approximately 120 miles out in the ocean that's active underwater. Crescent City is right there next to Oregon. And so when Crescent City goes, it's right there on the border, between there and Brookings and Bandon and the rest of them. Right there, there's a volcano out there. When that goes, and they're now predicting an 8.4 or above, when that one blows at 8.4 or above, the entire shelf drops west of I-5 is gone within 2 hours.
How would it go? I mean, let's tell
just like in the movies, go straight up as an edge and sink right straight down into the crack that has opened as a fault line under the earth.
So it
disappears. And what Edgar Cayce is saying, I was at St. Helens on the beaches camping with my daughter and my stepdaughter and wife, and had to drive back. That was the second blow that it went off. I had to drive back to Seattle when it was raining cement. And the first thing everybody had to do when we got home was clean your engine, because you're absolutely correct. That fine grit will get into everything and wear everything out. Now, the good news is everything east got dusted, and that was God giving man some new topsoil. That wherever that fell, and over in Spokane the region, they got as much as 5 inches of soot that fell down, and that primo was soil that made farmland boom 5 years later. Now, that's the good and the bad. The ugly is that when Yellowstone goes, there's the new Madrid fault line going right down straight through the Mississippi. And when that goes, there are 21, count them, 21 Daiichi-like reactors like Fukushima on that fault line. They're all leaking, and it takes one full year to power one down. What do you think's going to happen when we have a grid down situation because of Mount St. Helens and not Mount St. Helens, when Yellowstone goes? Woody Harrelson sitting there on the top of a cliff saying, "Bring it on."
Yeah, I remember that.
Well, there it is. That's how it's going to play. And that part of the United States is going to be uninhabitable for I don't know how many centuries. Worse, where's the fallout going to fall? The ash. And that's page 1. Now, there are a series going downhill from there. From Polchef, there's history of how the different epochs came down, including the flood, of Noah's period. They're finding that on Mount Sinai now, remnants of those big lifeboats that they had, what you call the Ark. And I can tell you that I don't know how it's going to play. Flip a coin. It's all going to happen. You can count on it because imagination is reality. It's not about physics. It's not about the Lord. It's about, you can count, if you can envision it in your mind's eye, it's not only true, it's even more than that.
Well,
and that's why in my little course I teach for children, Magic 101, I say, man has a responsibility for the thoughts he chooses to entertain. You can start there.
Well, here's my concern, Richard, is if Yellowstone does go, how is it going to vaporize a big area? What? How?
Yeah, Utah's gone. Parts of Montana, Idaho. Oh, yeah. Even going slyly into Washington and California. Absolutely. That's why I said, look at Chet Snow. He shows you the new coastline and the big hole in America where Yellowstone was.
Yeah. How about where James is in Ohio, sitting right now in his house? Is his house going to survive, or is it going to be vaporized?
Ohio is along those rivers up there. What is that? Lake Superior and that whole region is semi okay. Florida's underwater. Up in Chicago and the Great Lake regions, a lot of that's gone. And water going into Canada, into the territories up north of Canada. Up north of Canada, we are expecting types of weather that are uninhabitable for men, much like we used to think of Antarctica. That you can live there, but it's like Crocodile Dundee when he opened his can of beans out in the woods and he said, well, you can live on it, but I wouldn't eat it. There's possibilities, but you may not want to go there. Now, the good news is that the kinds of foods you want to be eating are not what you're currently eating anyway. That's why everybody's sick. The COVID virus has got everybody frightened, because it isn't about diseases. It's about your immune system and what isn't being fed the proper foods to make it so you can walk on water.
Well, let's face it, Richard. What do people eat? They go fast food places. They get their burgers, their French fries. They go
their burgers. What a trip, yeah. And how did Jay Leno put it? Doritos. Oh, don't worry, we'll make more.
Yeah, make more. And you go to the store, right? And you buy
couch potatoes. But here's the real heavy-duty news in my belief system, which doesn't mean I'm right. In fact, I know I'm not, but it's what I believe right now. It says that every single human being is important. Not just people like me or you. It's every single person is going to have to, at some point, get off the couch and begin their purpose, why they choose to be here. And none of us get out of here until you do what you're supposed to do. And that's that. That's my belief system. I do not place myself above or better or more superior than anyone else. I try to have my skill sets, so I've got something to bargain with, and I'm an asset rather than a liability. But again, I just watched a thing on Netflix. I can't even remember the name of it, about a little group of preppers going out in the woods, and they end up killing each other because of an accident. Do they report it to the police, or do they keep it secret because then the police would know about their secret stash place?
Interesting.
Yeah, the possibilities. Again, man has a responsibility for the thoughts he chooses to entertain. Now, survival has got some basics to it, and you can break them down in mobility. You know, being able to get out of here, bug out quick. If you had 10 minutes of warning and knew, let's say you lived in Ashland, Oregon, and you knew that that mountain out there, there's a mountain that's got, if we can see it from space, has a bunch of poison gas trapped down there. Mount Bachelor has poison gas down there.
That would kill a lot of people.
Yeah. What it'll do is when it releases, everything from Ashland to South Medford is dead within 2 hours, and then the land becomes habitable again probably in another 2 weeks. So most scenarios that the military are using is that you're not down for years. However, in Arapahoe, I have an old Nike missile silo that's got 3 families running 60 feet of aquaculture, food production, enough to feed 4,000 people in a closed system. Chattanooga. I was hired and taken into Chattanooga. I was there like 2 months doing a series of workshops and blah, blah, blah. And at the end of the day, within 3 years after my workshops, every single restaurant on the Chattanooga River has a greenhouse. That downtown center where all the businesses were was turned into a farmer's market, a daily farmer's market. And their stock exchange today monitors surplus foods for each day. So you have for, preps and, prepared foods and or cottage industries that need extra and want to sell it outside for barter, whatever. Now, every single region of the country has native plants. I wrote that book as Native Plants of Commercial Importance, broke the United States and Canada into 7 regions, and each one has their own Me Too crops. That means like golden seal. And the West Coast out here, our golden seal substitute is Oregon grapefruit. It's got more berberine rather than hydrasine, but it's the same thing. And we have our own ginsengs out here, like Opilopanax aridum, also known as Devil's Club, grows in Olympic rainforest at 20 feet tall. And so that's your ginseng. And there's other kinds of native plants. Now, the American Indian had a way of looking at things where they had like 50 known illnesses, and they had a cure for every single one of them. And our current modern medicine that would treat cancer with another cancer thing, what is that called? Chemotherapy, radiation. The craziness of allotropic medicine is such that when I had my hip replaced, I have titanium in all my limbs, stories. When I replaced my hip, they wanted to put me on warfarin, blood thinner. Warfarin? That's a rat poison. Why would I want to take rat poison to thin my blood? What I ended up doing is using an enzyme called chlotinase. It's a natinase. You get it in certain kinds of foods. It's an enzyme. And all the orthopedic surgeons watched what happened to me, see if it was working. Interestingly, they all still prescribe warfarin to you, but they use chlotinase. And there's your medicine at its finest hour.
Well,
dentistry is next.
Richard, here's what concerns me. Virtually any medicine that you get prescribed, if you look at the side effects of it, it's not a cure. Okay, like some of the herbal
stuff. Exactly correct. It's a Band-Aid with thorns.
It's big
why?
Thorns.
Guess why? Because it's about money. And money changes everything. Gotta love Cyndi Lauper. Well, I like Tina Turner, and what's love got to do with it? You know, the whole thing is slanted in the wrong direction, like our prisons. I just wrote a screenplay. I have a friend of mine, I'm representing it in Hollywood right now, called Once Upon a Time at San Quentin. It was written by a second tower high tower guard that grew up in the prison system, and it depicts the distinctional difference between a prison, which is about money, and penitentiary that the Quaker developed so they could rehabilitate and return some of their brighter, more criminal-minded individuals back into productive society.
Well, you know what scares me, Richard? I was reading an article yesterday. I can't remember what city it was, or state it was. They now, because of the virus, and they're so backed up, in the court system. I mean, you don't have a speedy trial right now anymore. And here's what they've done. If you get busted for, even a felony of drugs, they're not going to prosecute you no more. If you're a prostitute, they're not going to prosecute you anymore because they don't have the funds, they don't have the time. And so a lot of
there's no money in it.
Yeah. So
exactly.
And they can't afford to put the people in the prison because if they do, a lot of them are going to die. So their new philosophy is unless you go out and murder somebody or rob a bank, you're not going to go to prison anymore. You're not even going to be charged with the crime.
That's what Amsterdam did 50 years ago. I watched a 25-year IV user off of Amsterdam go into a clinical situation using ibogaine, plant. It's a vine growing in Africa, and one single use, and that person never used heroin again. And that was a 25-year IV user. Now, how does it work? Nobody knows yet. It can be used for things like gambling, and spousal abuse, types of addiction that are not site-selective related. Nobody knows how it works, except that I watched this guy, he's 25 years, he went through 30 hours of near-death experience and needs to be in clinical situations because at the margin it's called Bwiti of the Fang. The Bwiti were a tribe that used this, and you do it. You see Bwiti once when you become a man, and the second time is when you die. And that's their religious, mythology that they follow. But ibogaine does something with PGO waves in the occipital region of the cerebral cortex that somehow changes habits. And the distinction between addiction and a tool is 200 shades of gray. And when I say that, when you're doing methamphetamine, well, I've seen an ant carry 10 times its weight, and the way that woman ripped that car door off, exactly the same. And everybody, that's adrenaline. What, did the adrenaline make her body stronger than steel? I don't think so. So exactly how do you rationalize adrenaline and strength? Tensile, static testing, ripping something apart with steel or flesh. And I can tell you that's what altered states are in terms of neurotransmitters. Now, when you take a mushroom to heal, let's say, depression, psychedelic mushroom. I have a Schedule 1 right now growing psychedelic mushrooms for Canada and Israel. And this new field theory I'm writing is going to suggest that the mushroom itself is a toxin, but it has a look-alike, very similar chemistry to norvobiocysteine and psilocin, which are in psychedelic mushrooms. And those freak the brain out. And what happens is the brain then jumpstarts its own production of a similar but different neurotransmitter that's dialoguing with the multiverse. And that's where your altered states of consciousness and the power tools of being able to do super soldier type things lie in the mind's eye.
Well, here's what I want to, Richard, I want to jump in on this. my father served World War II in Korea. And what he said, that these Koreans, because they were given, drugs, and they would charge without even thinking. They didn't care if they got killed. They just charged and kept charging. And he said it was the scariest thing he ever saw compared to World War II, going into to what happened in Korea. That's what drugs can do. It alters your thoughts, your everything. And he said,
alters your reality.
Yeah.
The laws of physics change.
Yeah. And, like he said, you could nail some of these people numerous times, and they still kept coming because they didn't feel any pain. They kept on coming till they couldn't go anymore. And that's what really scares me. I want to backtrack a little bit more, and we're going to continue on about, prepping, medicine and all this other stuff. But here's the thing. Magnetic Earth flip. Now, scientists, depending on who you talk to, you come up with all these different scenarios. What is your gut feeling if the magnetic, we had a flip? And again, if we do have a flip, people don't realize. Some people think, "Oh, it's just going to flip. Everything's going to be fine." But aren't we going to get hit? Aren't we going to get hit by solar radiation like living hell?
Well, yes. All of the above, anything that you could imagine as possible, is not only true; it's even more than that.
Tell us
what's the strength and danger of imagination, and with it comes a responsibility for why all your saints in history have stressed the importance of training the mind. Meditation, somehow taking control of your thoughts, because your thoughts are tools to be used to change your belief systems. That was one of the protocols I trained Navy SEALs, how to change a belief system like you would a pair of clothing. If I had an individual on my team that went into Afghanistan as a Christian, he could get the team killed. Now, that did not mean he put that belief system away, he got rid of it. No, it's more like your belief system is a tool, like a sweater, that you would fold neatly and put in a drawer to save for when it's cold out. Metaphor. And once you understand that belief systems are arbitrary, that everyone is correct, that everyone is uniquely different, and that there are probably as many different religions as a metaphor as there are human beings. And the reason you join a specific church over another one is to reinforce your value system of where you aspire toward. Because I want to be this way, not that way. And that's arbitrary. And why, in Christianity, the primary teaching that nobody practices is not to judge another, but judge yourself.
Well, we need to do that. I got to ask you this. Okay, and people want to know this. Why is all this stuff going? Why is the North Pole, South Pole, Antarctica, the sea level rising? We're looking at, like I said earlier, we're at Yellowstone. We're looking out of the ocean on the West Coast.
Yes.
We got all this stuff. We got all this stuff going on right now, and why aren't people taking this serious? Let alone, okay, they don't even know if an asteroid could hit our planet 10 minutes from now, because we don't even have enough monitoring to keep track of every asteroid. I mean, there's been some...
Or all the junk that's floating around the Earth right now from previous space flights.
Well, how about this? The space station dumped out 2,000 pounds of junk last week. Where's that going to go?
Where does it go?
Well, it's not going to go to
at some point, it will fall to Earth. That's what the atmosphere is about. It's a big shield. When you take something like 4 and 5G technology, which is, microwave band. There is your strange particles, cosmic rays, gamma rays, that kind of thing in that bandwidth. Why would you want to put it down here on the surface of Earth? The farmers in the Midwest right now are noticing there are less flies on cow pies, and the ants are less in your kitchen. Why is that? Because they are the first to experience 4 and 5G variation in our atmosphere. And when you that's what the Van Allen belt's for. When I was at Mission Control in 1971, I realized I was right there watching what was happening. The reason they have a specific countdown, 5, 4, 3, is because just before liftoff, they have to punch a hole from something else through that ionosphere in order to get that astronaut through that shield. If you don't do that, there's nothing that lives. That's why the precision of it. And Challenger that blew up was an experiment trying to see if they could create its own shield around it, and like a bubble. That's what they're doing now with torpedoes. They put an oxygen bubble around it, and they can make that torpedo now supersonic.
Well, okay, what's going to happen as our magnetic field weakens? Are we going to be saturated with heavy radiation?
There's going to be some landmass changes. You can count on that.
How about radiation?
The way the Earth spins and the magnetic fields, there's going to be right out of the top the difference in the radiation that's hitting the Earth and how it changes the weather patterns and what we call our water paths that we have, like different tides and things that were affected by the magnetic and electric fields of the Earth. It's going to make places that were habitable uninhabitable, just because of the way the water is going down the toilet. You're going to find, instead of it going down counterclockwise, now it's going down clockwise. What is that going to do? Well, it's going to change the structure of water. That's that H3O2 that's on the leading edge of a wave. By the way, I can prove to you that a wave is a quark gluon plasma form that is a type of nuclear fusion right there in the center of the wave in terms of the way we do muon processes now. So you want to know where cold fusion occurs? Cold fusion is in the movement of a wave. It's in our very front. That's Alan Frey, by the way. Not Alan Frey. A guy at MIT, what's his name? I can't think of his name now, doing his doctorate in that area. Cavitation processes. When a drop of water hits a pool of water, what happens next? Well, there's waves that go out, there's waves that go in, and what happens is the drop of water goes down into the water and it comes back up again. But it's no longer a drop of water. It's a bubble that has trapped the atmosphere that it fell in like air. And inside is a cavitation process, a torus twister that Roger Penrose talks about, where the air is caving into itself, forming a cavitation on a quantum mechanical level. And this is now a metaphor that we're using in sciences, and why we have two brains, and why the sun has a binary, and why our galaxy has a white hole somewhere at the other end of the universe.
Well, Richard, we need to take a break. This break is about 4 minutes long, so if you need to get a cup of tea or whatever, now's the time to do it. We'll be back in about 4.5 minutes with Dr. Richard Allen Miller. We're going to talk more, all the bad stuff, and then we're going to talk about what you can maybe do to save yourself and what you need to have available.
Ever wanted to break out of your cubicle and into a business where you can call the shots? You Break Guy Fix is looking for passionate self-starters interested in a franchise opportunity in the booming electronics repair industry. At You Break Guy Fix, we help reconnect people to the devices that they rely on so that they can get back to what matters most. This is a big responsibility, and from the moment you join our family, our franchisees are provided with the resources and support to bring affordable and convenient electronics repair to your community. Did we mention that with amazing partners like Samsung and Google, YouBreak-iFix franchisees also have access to the highest quality parts and personalized training out there, as well as specialized tools? It's true. And it's also easy to visit youbreakifix.com/franchising and learn more about your big break at your very own YouBreak-iFix.
What do you know about Dr. Dunch?
Based on the unbelievable true story.
I can't make sense of this.
Dr. Death.
Dunch has 2 deaths that we know of.
Starring Joshua Jackson with Christian Slater and Alec Baldwin.
I am going to fix you.
All episodes streaming now, only on Peacock.
Double. We'll be right back, so stay tuned. You're listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio.
A Greek statue reflection starts to speak. And all the frozen answers remind the frozen questions not to speak. Now is the time I told you. You may find a better love to hold you. It's not my time. Just because the leaves are dry, and because you know that I am fading in the night. Just because you know that you can never really love me more than you are in love. Because the leaves are dry, and because you know that I am fading in the night. Just
Tom Davis here with Metatron Power and Light. We'd like to thank everyone for all the positive emails and responses to our music. Our music can be found on Amazon, Spotify, YouTube, and all digital outlets, and is featured on Night Dreams Talk Radio with Gary Anderson.
Metatron Power and Light is a band that deals with esoteric subjects, the paranormal, and other topics that engage the spirit and mind. Visit MetatronPowerandLight.com to learn more.
We are facing a time of great change, and the future is unwritten. But when we come together and seek answers, we expand our awareness until we begin to see the unseen. Uncovering secrets allows us to develop the knowledge we will need to shape our future and control our destiny.
You can advertise your business on Night Dreams Talk Radio, and you will be heard worldwide. Why not contact us at nightdreamstalkradio@gmail.com.
Stay safe, stay indoors, and listen to us.
Good evening, or morning, depending on your time zone. From the Pacific to the Atlantic to you worldwide. Get yourself a cup of Java and find a comfy, easy chair. And get ready for Gary and his guest on Night Dreams Talk Radio After Dark. And now, here's Gary.
And here I am with Dr. Richard Allen Miller. Question I have is, and I'm not trying to scare people tonight, I just want people to open their eyes. You know, people just don't know how to survive. But here's the thing. I've been reading a lot. A lot of the wealthy people are going to the Midwest. They're buying these $1 million bunkers. And, you know, and there's big security areas where there's dozens and dozens of these bunkers in groups. And they're set to ride out a couple years of something. But is a couple years going to be long enough if we have a pole shift or if we have all this stuff is going on? And really, why is this stuff all happening now? Did we do something wrong?
I don't think that it's all happening now. Remember the quote, when you see the kingdom of the Father on earth, the apocalypse is already occurring. It is perpetual in its potential. Now, what does that mean? Well, the Carrington effect. Can you imagine what it was like when they didn't have telegraph?
Yeah.
They had Pony Express. They didn't have the mail. And what happens when your check doesn't arrive the day it's supposed to? You know, everybody is in a just-in-time situation. Most cities have only 3 days of food prepared. And everything is based on long haul. You know, Teamsters and longshoremen. That, Suez Canal, there it is. And with that said, a little glitch way down over there in China can have global effects, like Wuhan and their little accident that they supposedly orchestrated. You know, this whole thing is how a very few high wealthy individuals are trying to take control of our universe. And I think it was Benjamin Franklin that put it best when he said, when you give up your civil rights for safety, you lose both. Now, with that said, everyone should get to know their neighbor, because it's me now that's going to say this. It will be your neighbor that saves your life. And that's that.
Well,
no
FEMA
matter where you're living.
Help. FEMA will not help. They're not prepared for any major
well, no, the whole
disaster.
thing's about, government control and budgets and money. The thing I'm trying to say here is there's something more important. You should get to know your neighbors. If you live in a neighborhood, most people don't have a clue who their neighbors are. And I'm saying this now, in a natural disaster, it'll be your neighbor that saves your life. And a zombie is East L.A. when they're out of food. Well, as a metaphor, I mean, think about it. People panic. Look what happened in Hawaii when Fukushima happened. In Kailua, and the shells were rifled, and it was bare. Well, now we know what that looks like because now we've gone through Wuhan. But during Fukushima, when that thing happened, and the radiation was starting to affect fish and blah, 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 and nobody knew what was going to happen, panic. And that's fear. What Castaneda said, it's the first enemy of man. The second enemy, by the way, is when you achieve some personal power and it begins to corrupt you. So there's 4 enemies. I can do the others later if you want. But what I'm trying to say here is, if you just get to know your neighbors, that's where you have neighborhood watch. You have blah blah blah. That you start with what you've got to work with. And each environment is uniquely different and has its own advantages and disadvantages. And to create an ark or a sustainable lifeboat has all kinds of possibilities. If we have a nuclear winter, or we have some kind of pole shift where there's a day after tomorrow kind of weather change in everything, tidal waves coming in to New York City and taking out the city with big ships falling in between the buildings, as a metaphor, it's going to be your neighbor that saves your life, and you're working as a team with skill sets. SEAL Team 1 that I put together had redundancy. That means everybody knew how to do everybody else's job.
Well, that's
they don't do that now in the current SEALs, but redundancy was the key word there. Everybody could do everything else.
Now, Dr. Richard, people are asking, where are some safe spots that you might think of if any of this stuff went down in this world? Is there going to be?
What do you mean? What do you mean? Like
some places
bunkers?
No, I don't know. I'm not going to say bunkers. Is there going to be some places yet that won't be affected, where people can still live in communities?
In the movies, they always try to make it Costa Rica.
Well, it's because of the weather.
Because of the laws down there. What you've got down in Costa Rica is a bunch of bandits. And they run countries just like they do in Mexico. And so you're going to have to find a thing like Riverworld or Waterworld. Waterworld, what was the one that, what's-his-face played in? That what was that, Waterworld?
Waterworld.
The future. Yeah. They're floating out in the sea, and they had a closed system. And that's what, gun turrets and all. You let people in, you let people out. In Oregon, where I live right now, we have Mount Sexton. There are on the top of Mount Sexton 2 large guns, 2 heliports that drop down into the mountain, and that's not military. That's paramilitary that run that. And that's to close off I-5, because that's the only way to go from Washington to California. You cut this free state of Jefferson off, and now you've got a closed system. And that's an interesting movie. The Free State of Jefferson. You ought to check that one out. There's several sci-fi movies that take place in the future. And when law and order is gone, and now you're back to the wild, wild west with local variations in law.
Well, how long do you think, seriously, if we had a major disaster where it affected the whole country, or even half the country, I mean, like I said earlier, FEMA isn't going to be there. Local law enforcement, you know what? They're going to think about their own self and family.
Well, that's why you have militia. That's what the militias are. The National Guard, the local infrastructure. It's going to fall apart. It already is in some communities without anything happening. So, there it is. What you do is you know your civil rights, and you don't abandon my 280Z when it blows a head gasket. What you do is you fix it. And that's the deal with our country right now. I don't know what the Democratic and Republican parties are all about. It's a confusion for me. But that does not mean we need revolution and to get rid of America. Because no matter what else, I remember our country was written on hemp. And that's paper that will last forever. And when I say that, I'm speaking in metaphor again, in terms of all the other countries and all their different kinds of laws and management and so on. In my humble opinion, America is still the best buy there is. And it was that way in agriculture. It was that way when we were making automobiles. It was a best buy. They were cheaper, and there was Best Buy.
Oh, yeah.
And what's happened is the Best Buy has been lost in our culture, and there's lots of cheaper now, from Harbor Freight on down.
Well, you know what?
I remember Snap-on as a metaphor, just like Harley, as a metaphor.
Yeah, I had Tony Dow on. You remember Tony Dow from Leave It to Beaver?
Yes, yeah.
He was on my show the other day, and what he said is, back in the day, They went out and bought a refrigerator. It lasted 30 years. When he was a kid, and I remembered, TVs used to last 10, 15, 20 years.
And Matheson used to fix them instead of throwing them away. That's correct.
Yeah, but you didn't even have to fix the stuff. It worked. Nowadays,
well, I'm talking about when a television broke, you didn't throw it away and replace it.
You fixed it.
It was worth it to fix it.
Well, now they're disposable. But everything, you go buy a new freezer, a new wash machine, you're looking at 4, 5, 6 years, and you throw it away and get a new one. And they say that technology has improved. Has it? I don't think so.
No, what's improved is business as usual.
Money.
Yes. And that's the problem with democracy and capitalism versus communism. They both have disadvantages and advantages. And when you realize a capitalistic society has its own situations, like the distinction of a prison over a penitentiary, and what you lose by not having a penitentiary where you can return most of your people to productive society. There's arguments on all of this, and that's why I feel that the only thing our government has ever done right was the U.S. Postal Service. They're trying to fix that. That's your front lines today.
Postal
I'd like to be a postal clerk.
Well, you know what? In the news yesterday, they're going to raise the rates. They're going to. It's going to take longer for your letter because they're not going to take the mail anymore and put it on aircraft and send it one end to the country to the other end. They're going to start trucking it because they want to make money, to save money. So our postal system is,
that's your new postmaster. And worse, the long haul's been taken over by the Russians. And you think the Mexicans are bad. Your long haul is now run not by the mafia, it's run by Russians. And that's creepy. And I know my limitations, but so I try to buy local, farmers market, as a metaphor. The more you invest in your environment, the more that environment, as a metaphor, will take care of you in survival. And survival has many, many different faces and often requires belief changes, like as a tool, and the way you choose to look at things.
Oh yeah,
here's how did Yoda put it? I love this one. My gun you may have. After I give you my bullets, I will. What I do is I carry around a little water pistol with ammonia in it. That'll stop a grizzly bear.
Oh yeah, it would.
Well, then very simple household things that are left on the shelf after all the food's gone, like ammonia and chlorine. Chlorine's your friend. Chlorine, sanitation is one of the key words in my whole thing. You got to stay clean or you're going to get sick. You can count on it. And if you're eating the right foods, let me give you an example. In your woods, up in your area, I know I grew up in a little Boy Scout, and your woods have pharmaceutical mushrooms. They have the gourmet mushrooms, and they have the psychedelics. You have all of them up there. But the pharmaceutical ones, there's 72 of them, like chaga and cordyceps and reishi and maitake. All of those are long sugar molecules called polysaccharides, and you eat those. And what that does is it delivers oxygen to the body on a cellular level. And now ATP inside the cell, having access to oxygen as a little quark gluon plasma, that's what ATP, adenosine triphosphate, is where cold fusion occurs. When you have oxygen in your body, you don't get sick. That's that. And it doesn't matter what creepy black plague is out there. You don't get sick because it's your immune system that takes care of it with NK killer cells and the rest of it. But the oxygen part is critical. And the mushrooms you have growing in your woods, you start eating those, watch what happens next. You're going to live an extra 30 years.
Probably. Now, going back to these people, in the Midwest buying these bunkers, these multimillionaires, spending $1 million bucks for a bunker. Or like I classify the bunker hotel.
Then they have to worry about defending it from people who want to take what they own.
But are they?
The more you have, the more people are going to want it.
But are they going to put it this way? If something major happened, going underground in a bunker, is that going to save you, or are you just going to postpone what's going to happen anyway?
Yes, all of the above. Yes, good. Yes, bad. Yes, ugly. All of it is true. Really, it isn't about the bunker. It's about the individual that goes down into the bunker, because IQ is actually not intelligence. IQ is survival coefficient.
So, in other words, basically, if we had a major national disaster, a major one, okay, there's not much we really can do about it, is it? Maybe buy some time.
Well, that's why I said you're along for the ride. Unless, God sends down one of his minion, what we call angels or aliens or whatever they are, to rescue us. There's those books that have been written also, Epoch and Aeon. Greg Bear, that was a good one, talks about the last days of man on Earth, and the aliens show up, and they pick 144,000 to take into space to witness the end of the Earth before they relocate them. It's a sci-fi. Now, imagination is reality. Just stay with me here. This is a metaphor, again, of what writing about a what if and how it all plays. What are aliens? I don't know, but I can tell you that there have been life forms on Earth that were like men, like Nephilim and Ant-Men, because I've seen the artifacts from history. I've seen them as part of the things I did for the military. And Nephilim, I have no idea what that is, but when I was at Shiprock teaching the Navajo, they talked about a cannibal that was, 20 feet tall but 8 men.
Yeah.
Well, that's a legend, okay? And up in Washington, where you and I grew up, we're talking about Wendigo, the wind in the willow, the wind going through the trees. You go into the northern Cheyenne over in Basin, and they'll talk. There's legends of Bigfoot and Wendigo, what are these other kinds of life forms? Well, I don't know, but one of the ones I did do, and you can read about it in a real weird book from Feral Press called Secret and Suppressed. It's edited. And a friend of mine, Tom Lytle, wrote one about Jim Morrison, who was 10 years old when he went through the crossroads when grandfather Manzwanga died. That later then Thomas Banaka took over, a spokesperson for the Hopi. This Montangwa is like a type of life form, like a Dalai Lama. They have continuity of genetic memory. They're human, but they're not human. They're different. Like Pierce Brosnan did a movie called Nomads, and it was about a life form that intercropped with humans at night. And we talk about werewolf and vampire. Wherever there's mythology, there's usually a reason for it, like elf, faun, and fairies. My daughter was filming an eclipse of the sun at one point a few years back and saw this light moving in her garden. And she was distracted and filmed it for me. And on closer inspection, it looks like a fairy. Now, do they exist?
I don't know. I think they maybe do.
I can tell you, if your son says there's a boogeyman under the bed, you should believe him, because what I am discovering now as a senior scientist, credibility, background and history, imagination is reality. Anything you could imagine is possible. It was Merlin in a book by T.H. White. He said, when he looked at Arthur, they were bombarding Luther's castle, and right after he said, "Oh, I didn't see that," he said, "Anything not specifically forbidden is mandatory. If it's possible, you can count on it." Now, that's a correct way to approach reality. Now, as I understand it as a physicist, and I know I don't know, can't get there from here. Doesn't work like that. Simon says you can go halfway to the door. In the process of never getting to the door, you miss the journey.
Now, because our time is, we only got about another half an hour. Here's one thing. I got today from two different people, sent me over a video, supposedly in 2005, in a NASA, off of the NASA website. They had this big document. Now, I don't know. I haven't had a chance to prove if it's real or not, but I listened to this YouTube presentation of this lady who claimed that NASA has this on their website. In 2025, they plan to release viruses and all this stuff to terminate a large population of humans. Have you ever heard anything about that?
You want to go there, huh? Okay, well then this new vaccine has an end switch on the RNA so that they can control the gene pool. And China right now is paying people, individuals, to have sex to change their gene pool. Go figure. Fig Heil.
But again, do you believe? Have you ever heard about that article that was in NASA?
There's secret weapons for silent wars, and before that, there's always been this thread of control in around the year 2025. And there's even a song on the year 2025, da 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 da. In the year 30, 25, 40, 25. In the year 50, 25. Check that song out and look at some of the artistic interpretations using old video. Yeah, that ought to take you home into your mind's eye. Now, with all of that said, fear is the first enemy of man. This is not about survival. It's about lifestyle and who you want to become. And you have choices. And most of us, including myself, have made some bad ones where I know what I don't want to do anymore. And with that said, you're going to have some choices, and some of them are going to be like today with the COVID virus and the social distancing and the loss of restaurants. Do you realize that the restaurant trade will never, probably ever be at the same? That New York City, that was all about food, every single block in New York City had a delicatessen at the end of the block that was to die for. And 287,000 people evacuated New York City the first year of this virus thing. And what do you think that's done to the restaurant trade and the whole concept of dining out? And how things are going to change with dirty masks. Do you like wearing your mask? Do you think it's healthy for you?
No, you're breathing.
Why are they doing that? Are they afraid you're going to spread something when, in fact, there was no flu this year? Did you notice that?
Yeah, isn't that kind of strange, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, how's that work? Well, let's see. I remember when my mother sent me to school on purpose to get sick.
Yeah, get it over with.
Well, yeah, at the early age where you had an immune system that could set up immunity because it's your body, not medicine. And the food choices are why 1 in 4 people in Oregon is not fat. They're obese. It's unbelievable. I don't believe it. Walking down the street, and it's the younger kids. It's their food choice. And that's where the first problem starts in survival. What I'm doing, I'm taking an old bus out of Pacifica, and it used to do Monarch Butterfly, go to all the little...
Now, Richard, we need to take this 1 minute break, and then let's talk about
Take it off. That's fine. It's good.
Okay, we'll be back with Dr. Richard Allen right after this. You're listening to me, Gary, on Night Dreams Talk Radio. Check out our website at www.nightdreamstalkradio.com. We'll be right back.
You know that she was making witchcraft.
Hi, this is Tom Davis with Metatron Power and Light. Our songs are inspired by our own experiences and the stories of people we've met. We know what we've seen, and we know the truth. We are not alone.
She asked me for a
What's unusual about Metatron Power and Light as a band is we share the same beliefs. We've all had similar experiences, and together through music we can explore the kinds of subjects that haven't been presented in exactly this way before.
We want everyone to know that what you're going through, we're going through. When you're being told one thing and seeing another, we're here with you. Music brings people together, and together we're strong.
For the ones who know that a little late is always too late, and that the clock doesn't stop just because you're missing a part, Grainger offers supplies and solutions for every industry. And our Keep Stock inventory management solutions help ensure you have the right stuff in the right place at exactly the right time. Visit Grainger.com/keepstock to learn more. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
What do you know about Dr. Dunch?
Based on the unbelievable true story.
I can't make sense of this.
Dr. Death.
Dunch has 2 deaths that we know of.
Starring Joshua Jackson with Christian Slater and Alec Baldwin.
I am going to fix you.
All episodes streaming now, only on Peacock.
Stay safe, stay indoors, and listen to us.
You're listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio After Dark with our host, Gary Anderson.
And we are back with Dr. Richard Allen Miller. People on chat are saying what you mentioned, that, they have kids in daycare. They had kids in school. And this year, there was no viruses going. Even in my household, it seems like people normally get sick with the flu or stomach flu or stuff like that. It's not happen. And another thing people have been noticing, no fleas, no normal things that normally been going on aren't going on. Is that because of something else or what?
I can't fully answer that because I don't know. I can guess, but again, I feel that I don't have the answers. I'll just work it that way. I don't have the answers. What I am going to do is I'm going to take an old school bus and I'm going to convert it into a mobile water testing laboratory run by third graders. And they are going to take that bus and deliver it to a bunch of first graders, showing first graders how to test for turbidity, pH, and cleanliness of water and how to clean water. And then Michael Moore is going to take that bus across the country and clone it everywhere it stops as a movie. Now, once you show a child aquaculture, where you're growing a tomato plant, this is a 4-year-old, before they're 7. You show them a tomato growing in the middle of March, producing a second year of tomatoes, and that child will never have a fear of food. Why? Because it knows how to do that. And our educational system right now is in the serious need of educational reform, like we needed social distancing 10 years ago in the supermarkets. And with that said, once you understand that rather than create a curriculum, I have a new project I'm doing called Oak Institute. And I have a whole bunch of teachers that are wanting to experiment on different ways of approaching these young geniuses. And my first step, which is not the end, it's just the first, what your great-grandson then is going to evolve into a better way. So I'm not going to go in with a curriculum. I'm going to ask the child, what does it want to know? Because I already know what I can't do. But that child does not, and that's where innovation occurs. And because that child is way smarter than me, why would I want to give that child the limitations I currently enjoy?
Well, I agree.
Well, then there it is. That's what we need to do now, and every single person needs to start that first step toward that. I don't have the answers on how to do this, but I do know that when I did a sixth grade class for 2 years, and with Dr. Norm Shealy and I, where these sixth graders got to go on national radio and ask us their questions that they couldn't find in their school system. This was before the virus. And that book is going to be coming, the first book out of Oak Institute is called Children Ask the Darndest Questions. Here's a typical one. If pigs are so smart, how come parrots can talk and pigs can't? Well, that's where you start to talk about body language, nonverbal communication, and other ways of getting your point across besides language. And here's a more interesting one. I did a single tour at Groom Lake back in the early 70s, where I was military on government land having a close encounter at level 8 with an entity called Krill. And nobody knows what happened. I don't have any memory of what happened. But last month, when I was asked to co-author this new field theory, one door opened. I was in 20 minutes with this 7.5-foot gray that was felt feminine, and that's where all my memory is gone. I have no memory of whatever happened for the 20 minutes. One door opened, and what I realized from that one door was a higher form of language is emotion. And 20 minutes of emotion language is equivalent to a lifetime of words. When I went into Carl Sagan's laboratories 45 years ago, 43 and a half years ago, somewhere way back, they wanted to use the dolphin as a weapon to guide torpedoes more accurately to their destination. And so they wanted me to see if I could break a language so they could communicate the dolphin. And I was there, 10 days, and I do code. I said, have they ever done it?